Welcome to part 3, the ever so bloodbath, as I'm going to call this one. I always feel like a Pokemon professor every time I wear this. Look at me, guys. Do I look like I'm Professor Robbie? Come on now. I don't have a doctorate for no reason in Yu-Gi-Oh! So, show me some likes. We will generate part 4. I always feel snazzy when my ego is boosted. It gives me a reason I want to talk about these things. So, let's dig into discussion about going second and crying yourself to sleep in this format, shall we? Now, normally I would talk about Crusadia, but we've already done that at this point because they're a good deck now. So first up, we're going to start off with True Draco. This deck, don't give a shit. And it's one of the only decks right now in the current format that really just doesn't care. I think it's pretty unique in its aspect of not caring if it wants to go first or second, because Card or Demise is a really great card. Now, I think this deck has a really good Salad matchup as well. Like, you can beat Salamangreat really easily, I feel, because your graveyard effects all trigger. Now, obviously, Salad can end on a Dweller, which can end your life, and you're going to have a bad time. We all understand that. But Card or Demise is a great card that can put you back in the game. You can assemble a large amount of beat sticks on the field that are all going to trigger and search for cards, which is also really good. Maybe someday you'll get more than one Dynamite back and you'll be a real deck. But for what this deck can do at this point in time, I think that this is very much worth considering as one of the better metagame picks for going first or second. You know, like I said, if there's not a Dweller involved, a lot of game ones, I think we will see Salad make Dweller, just kind of as like a blind option to kind of try to paralyze the opponent, because danger cards do exist, and Dweller does stop danger from resolving so beautifully. Like, it's actually kind of crazy how good it is. But Disruption, Control, one of the best draw 3 cards in the entire game, and Dragonic Diagram all kind of wrapped into one little bundle. I gotta give it to you guys. You still have a very good time, but I think your representation's a little bit lower than you actually want to give it to you guys. Also, Inspector Border. Oh my god, that card is so good. Normal summons, just watch your opponent have to control which effects they want to use, because Inspector Border is a card. It's so good. Unfortunately, Ultra don't have access to Inspector Border. Well, they do, but they're not doing it good. It's just True Draco as a whole is just much better. Now, next up on this list is Cyber Dragons. Now, going into Chicago, nobody would have thought Cyber Dragons would have got the chance to do well. Now, at the time of YCS Chicago, the metagame was more towards going second. We definitely saw that second had a lot of preference. You would take your turn, you would break your opponent's board, and you would push everything across, and you would essentially win the game, right? That's kind of how it worked. Well, you didn't have a lot of opposition to that. I mean, the biggest opposition you might have had was an Azathoth at that point in time, and now we've brought Salad into the equation. It seems to be our theme here. You have to play around these large amount of back row. And while Cyber Dragon can simply special summon Contact out, I mean, you're going to have more than one Cyber Dragon, because you have to bait through copies of these things. Because Cyber Dragons are also going to have to OTK. Because the issue that I think Cybers are going to face is if they can't successfully clear that gate and kill the opponent on that turn, then Salad's going to just recuperate. Now, obviously, more hand traps will be the way I would pressure Cyber Dragon into being a better deck at this point in time. And obviously, if you can get to that point, well, then you can have success with it. But if you don't get the chance to do that, then your strategy just kind of falls to the wayside. So yes, Cyber Dragons are still going to exist, definitely on a regional level, but they will be there. The representation has gone down significantly because we've shifted out of the going second format that we were in to this going first setup, break my board kind of thing. And it's really bad news for decks like Cyber Dragon that don't get the chance to be able to play. Now, next up on this list is McKnight. The McKnight engine, it's power crept. It's done. Every feature match I watched this weekend, nobody cared about placement of cards. And it was beautiful knowing that I was right. Because I've said before that the McKnight engine was being power crept. And you could see it. You could see the numbers dwindling. You could see the deck slowly disappearing. The deck has finally recessed, and it's taking a quiet seat in the corner. Now, here comes the real question. Now we're a rogue deck. All right, we were a rogue deck that people were playing for, but now we're a rogue deck that nobody cares about. This is where the real fun begins. This is where this deck can kind of come in and start stealing stuff. Now, this deck has a really hard time playing against multiple back row, and it is... I want to give it to McKnight, and I want to say that this deck is a sleeper deck. This deck could do well at a regional. I'm sure this deck can top 30 to a regional at least. But that's the most it's going to be able to do, unfortunately. With the way that things are going at the current point in time, McKnights just don't have the oomph to get them there. Now, obviously, combining them with other engines and doing things like that would be the best way to do it. But now that we're a recessive deck that nobody cares about, this is where the real journey begins. So, I think you can top 32 with this. You're not going to top 8 with this at this current point in time. And as a rogue deck that has hidden elements going for it, you can probably get some people on column placement and take advantage of it. Especially, you know, when your opponent has 3 cards in a salad column and you special summon and they wasted their negate on something else. You did it. All right? That's what you need in your life. Crazy resolutions like that to happen. And I think McKnight could actually succeed. So I'll give it to them. We'll see. Now, also in this equation is Invoked. The Invoked engine has taken a really big backseat. I forgot that this engine existed, honestly, until recently. Now, obviously, you've seen McKnight Invoked be combined into the same deck, and we talked about how shady, or how shitty, it is right now for column placements. Now, it's the same thing with the Invoked engine. Invoked fusions are not what they used to be. The deck was good because it would opt for second. And right now, when you have real threats to play around as a back row deck, you don't get there. And it's unfortunate. We don't have enough back row disruption. The deck doesn't necessarily want to be playing Twin Twisters because discarding a resource pool can be bad. And I mean, obviously, you could tech the Invoked engine in something like Pendulum Magicians, but even Pendulum Magicians are taking a backseat at this point. They were so good pre-Salamangreat because Kali King Yugioh was good. But now, look at this Invoked engine. Look at what it's done. All right, you've already been power crept along with the McKnights, which was your brother deck and arms. And now you can't even go second and OTK your opponent with the best engine you had. Once again, I'm going to say that this is going to take a backseat as well. The Invoked engine is going to be super quiet for a very long time. And then we'll probably see a recursion of this somewhere along the way. It'll probably win some sort of regional or something like that. And everybody will be like, oh my God, what happened? Where did that come from? And we'll be like, well, you should have started playing around these effects. And it's kind of when you start to forget to play around certain things. Like when Gores stop being play around. Or when you stop playing around Gores, and then your opponent drops Gores on you, and you're like, I just cost myself the game because I attacked with the largest one first. Just don't forget to appropriately play around certain effects. It's not that hard, guys. Come on now. Now, the last one I want to talk about for this video, and this was a special request from a friend of mine. It's Frightfur, only because of Crackalacken. Let me tell you what's cracking, all right? This deck wanted to go second. Frightfur wanted to break boards. It didn't want to care about back row. Actually, it never really cared about back row. But we're in the same unique position that we find with all these other going second decks. The format just does not allow it. Now, Frightfur's got a lot of other problems right now. Obviously, you could play Pot of Desires. You can draw cards. You can get the pieces, but you're a combo deck. Combo decks struggle unless they have generic cards that make them better. You can't play Pot of Extravaganza because you need your combo pieces in your extra deck. Frightfur, unfortunately, we were so hype about Patchwork that we kind of just didn't realize that the deck was being naturally power crept out of the format. And it can't do anything. Like, it's so unfortunate because I want to see Frightfur be a deck. I want to see Kraken break boards. I want to see these OTKs, these monsters, be revived from the graveyard. But until they get a revival support line, I think that this deck is dead. And it's very unfortunate because we could have seen this deck, I think for a point, you could have played this deck and got top 32 to regional. But right now, I think your best record is going to be 4-5 with this, and it's really sad to say that, because why play Frightfur when you can play Solid and have a better time and a better record at the end of the day? Unless you just draw absolutely terrible, like, I will say that. Going second it's hurt a lot in this format. A lot of the rogue decks that we saw are getting barricaded out, but there is hope for other things, because I do want to talk about Paleo Frog in another video here, how this deck is having more success now than in previous formats, and it's just overall very interesting. So guys, please leave a comment down below. We will homebrew part 4 at some point, as long as we get some likes on this video. Alright guys, I'm out. Peace. The ride never, well, truly ends. Thank you, patrons. Without you guys, I don't know what I'd be wearing in these videos. I might be a Truffle Shuffle incident all over again. Guys, please also check out VanCole40 for some awesome Vanguard content. Some other interesting stuff you might find up here on the left or in the description as well. Thanks for watching.